Hey everyone, I'm back again. Gonna be giving you a quick kind of rundown a little bit of PHP in this tutorial, getting started in variables. What you're gonna be needing is at least a editor. Text editor is usually just as easy as Remover, which I have pulled up in front of me. Two, you're gonna need a web browser, Chrome, IE, Safari, Firefox, whatever you'd like to use. And then third, you're gonna need a server. You can rent a server, you get them for free, depending on what you want to do. And down and below, I'll have in the description the portable WAMP server, Windows, Apache, MySQL, PHP. Um, so, and another thing that you're gonna be noticing here, sorry if I keep on looking off here, but I'm gonna be actually making it where you can actually see me. I believe this will kind of help out with a little bit of interaction, so you don't know I'm not somebody just talking on the other end, and you don't know if I'm a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 20-year-old. Who knows what I am? Anyways, I'm a 20-year-old at the moment. But anyways, we're gonna continue here. I have Dreamweaver pulled open as my editor. You can use Notepad. You can use Notepad++. If you're on Mac, you can have TextEdit. And then there's VI Editor if you're Linux or if you have another program that you like to use. So starting off, I have Dreamweaver open here. We're going to need to create a file. Since I'm going to be FTPing into a server with my WinSCP over here, I'm going to create the file here so it auto-populates into my program. Make sure whenever you create the file, it's going to be extension.php. So in my case, I'm going to make this basics1.php. And as you notice, you'll see it here pop up in my Dreamweaver. Here we go. As you can tell, this document is going to be totally blank. We're just going to be starting from the basics, so I'm going to kind of give you a rundown of how do you start off PHP, how do you end PHP, what are the different tags that you can have for PHP. The extensions that you can have for PHP is PHP 5, PHP 4. I would recommend PHP because some servers don't support it or they have it disabled. There's other ways to change the extension, but I'm not going to go into any detail on this. Well, I think that's all I can really say about that part. So we're gonna get started here. So to start off, whenever you have your file, it's blank, nothing's there. You need to start off saying I want to use PHP code. So you don't have to use a left caret and then a question mark. And right there, what I have just shown at the moment is called shorthand. It's called shorthand because I'm not using PHP all the way. Normally your tag would be this, or there we go. Normally the tag would be left caret question mark PHP. You can use shorthand like this, as long as it's enabled on the server. It's called short tags. Sometimes it's disabled. You might need to turn it on or request it. To end the tag, you do a question mark and a caret the opposite direction, so a caret to the right. So this is how your tag would look, or it would look like this. I'm not actually going to pop up both examples of this just so you can see that I can do both. And depending on what text editor that you have, say if you're using Notepad++, if you change it to PHP, it will do a color code for you. In this case, I'm in Dreamweaver, so it's doing a color code saying I'm in PHP by marking my tags red. And it's a nice feature, especially if you're using a little bit higher advanced editor other than Notepad or TextEdit, because TextEdit, all you see is a black text, and you just keep on going. So, now I know how to define my tags. The next step is trying to define my variables. What variables do I want? How do I make a variable? What defines a variable? What can be in a variable? So I'm going to start off here with a basic variable. So to create a variable, you're going to use a question mark here. Sorry, I said question mark. That was my bad. You're going to use a $sign. You do a $sign, and as you notice in PHP or in Dreamweaver, I have these pop-ups. These are all predefined PHP variables that I can use, but I'm not going to be using any of those variables. I'm going to be using my own. So I'm going to name this one first step. And then I'm going to do an equal sign. So what I did is I said I want to make a variable, so I said a $sign. Then I named my variable first step, as you can tell right afterwards. Then I did space. You don't have to set a space, but I set a space. It's kind of easier to break apart from what the variable name is and what you're trying to define for it. Space equal. Now I have an equal but nothing after it. That means I'm going to define something for my variable. So in this case, since it's my first step, I'm done type something out. So I'm going to define a string. In this case, it's going to be, you can use double quotes or you can use a single quote. I'm going to use double quotes. It's kind of a better standard to use. Single quotes you can convert a little bit differently, and that's farther down the line whenever you need to do filtering, XSS, and all that special stuff whenever you submit forms and different validations. So Since I need to define something for my first step variable that I have, I'm going to define, yay, first step. Let's get going. Oop. Okay. So now I have my ending quote. So I started with a quote and I ended with a quote. Now I can go next line and it will be fine because I have nothing else to find out from my PHP, but that actually will cause you an error. When after you define something for the variable or any type of data into the variable, you need to set a semicolon. That is the dot with a comma underneath it. It allows it to break up saying, okay, next line, next information, whatever information you need to push. Now, I have this variable. I have it there. I'm going to click save here. And currently on my web page, if I actually left it how I currently have, there we go. As you can see, my file popped up here on the server. I have nothing. Nothing echoes. I defined this variable, but nothing came out. Why is nothing displayed? That's because I'm defining the variable back on the server side. Just so you know, if you don't understand what PHP is compared to HTML or CSS or JavaScript or anything of that sort, PHP is all on server end. So it's processed on the server and then provided to you. So whatever is processed on the server, you can't see unless you force it onto the page. That's when it comes into HTML, it comes into CSS, JavaScript, and some other coding languages. But since PHP is all backend, we need to find a way to push that variable to be visible on the front end. Where you can do that quite easily here is going to be called an echo. So I'm going to go echo. Echo, all it does is print it. It's just saying I want my information right here. Put it out. Whatever happened before is going to be before, and whatever happens after is going to be after. So I'm going to push out my variable. So all I'm going to do is recall my variable. So I'm going to do a $sign and type in first step, semicolon. So I know I ended. So I did my echo as my command, first step is my variable, and then a semicolon saying that's all done. Echo it out, we're done. So I'm going to click save here. Click refresh. There you go. So my first variable actually came out now. We now have defined how to set a variable and now how to display it. Now, what did I mean by have information before and have information after? Well, that actually can be defined two different ways. You can do it through the PHP or you can do it through the web page. Like you see on websites, you have your header all the time, you have your footer all the time, and then the body just changes. That body is actually mostly probably managed by PHP or somebody's manually editing every single page, which isn't fun. Major systems will have PHP change out the middle sections. That means pulling out different data, but the top and the bottom is the same. So I'm just going to start off something simple here. So outside of our PHP, I'm just going to do a basic HTML, H1, title tag is what I'm going to do. I don't know if it said H1 there. Okay, so I have something before, and now I want something after my PHP. Just kind of show you where it echoes out here. I'm going to go H2, title, tag H2, end of content. Just kind of give you a little layout of how this is going. And I'm just going to sit here for a few seconds here. But as you notice, currently, or last time we refreshed, it said your first step, let's go. Let's get going. So I'm going to click refresh here now. So now you have my first tag that I set above it right here. And then I have my echo of my PHP. And then I have my second tag right here, which can be found right underneath it. So that means it came out, the PHP came out after the first tag and before the last tag. Now, we now know how echo works, and there's actually other functions to do other than echo. There's also print. So I'm going to go print here. Please be aware that print and echo are pretty much the same thing. You can go into more detail by going to php.net to see how that works, but I'd like to just kind of show you how to. There we go. So I have my echo and I have my print. That means that the same string right here, first step, that means I can reuse my variable. I didn't mention that before, but you can reuse your variables. Just because I echoed it doesn't mean it erased it, removed it, or anything of that sort. It just means that I wanted to display it. It's kind of if you have dealt with a terminal or any type of console like CMD, it's the same way of echoing out the information or the content from the variables or the call or the command or the program that you're running or batch or CMD file. Same thing for PowerShell. So I have my echo and I have my print. So I'm going to go back over here and click refresh. As you can tell, I have first step, let's get going, and first step, let's get going. Now, as you can tell, they're on the same line. That's going to be all HTML side. To break those apart, it's a really easy step. I'm done kind of go into more detail on that in a second for you. But I just wanted to show you that you can output both with two different types of commands. And there's more commands out there to echo. But right now I'm just trying to show you the basics. Now, since I have these two echoes, as you can tell, they're right next to each other. I don't want them next to each other. So even though I defined my variable right here, I can use a dot, which allows me to add on more. So I can go the same variable twice if I really wanted to. So it'll echo out itself. It'll echo out, yeah, first step, let's get going. Yeah, first step, let's get going. And then go to the print and print out again. Yeah, first step, let's get going. I'm not really wanting to do that. I'm wanting to actually set some text. I want to add more text to what my string says. In this case, I want to make it where it drops a new line. So in this case, I'm going to set a double quote. I'm going to go left caret / and this is all HTML. Left caret BR space / right caret. This is going to be a line break in HTML. There's actually, depending on which HTML version you're using, there's a little bit different formatting, but I'm not going to go into that details. So I added a string onto my variable in this case, and then I'm echoing it. So if I go down here, click refresh, I echoed it. That's awesome. That's basically all you need to do if you want to display any information onto the page quickly. Now, kind of show you what happens when you break your page. I'm going to delete my semicolon. As you can tell in my editor, it throws me a red line. That means there's an error on the page. And if I click next right here, it displays saying there might be an error here. It's not always accurate. I'm just going to say that now. Any editor probably won't be fully accurate because you can forget a comma, you can forget a left parentheses, you can forget a lot of things, and it can break. Yeah, breaking ain't fun. But anyway, so I broke this. I'm going to go to my page and try to run this. You're going to see an error pop up. Poof. Anyways, so you have the unexpected. It gave me, oh, print. That doesn't mean much to me, right? So if I'm going to copy this error code here. I'm going to put it down at the bottom of my page here so we can see this error code. So my error code was syntax error. Syntax error meaning something's not formatted correctly in this case. It says unexpected print. So it still thinks echo is still going. And then I'm trying to run a command print inside echo. Doesn't work that way. Those functions don't work anywhere on inside of each other. So it throws me an error. Then it says, oh, print is a T print, which you can find as a reference later on. So it was expecting a comma or a semicolon. In this case, it got nothing. It just got a blank line or a new line in this case. Now, the next thing in PHP, you'll see an error. It gives you an address of how to get to my file, where it's at. On line 6. So if I go and look at line 6, it's saying this is the error. That is not the error. The semicolon that I removed up here on line 5 after my echo command is the error. Now, as you can tell, my red line disappears. Let me delete that here. I'm going to click refresh. Now I'm back to normal. So a simple semicolon can break your whole page. So that's what I'm trying to just kind of give you an idea that you need to set a semicolon. So what other variables can I make? Right now I showed you how to do a string. You can actually set an integer into it. We're just going to go first number equals 5. I'm just going to set 5. As you can tell, I didn't set quotes to it. I'm not making a string. I'm trying to make it an integer, a number, a numerical in this case. And I set a 5. Does it work the same way as a string? Yes. You can easily go echo, and let's go first number. Now, the thing is I'm going to need to do this, so you can actually see this on a new line. There we go. All right. Now, I just made myself an uh-oh. Now, I'm not going to fix it at the moment. So if I go refresh, that uh-oh doesn't pop me up in there. That is because there is nothing after that echo. Uh-oh. That uh-oh, forgetting my semicolon, there's nothing after it. So it doesn't pop up in errors. If you have something else after it, or you're trying to process something after it, and you don't define that it needs to be done, then it gives you that error. That's why we have the semicolons. Now, I have my first number. It says 5. Now, what happens if I want to set something in front of that? I did all this calculation. I got my number back. Now I want to say this is my number because of da, and then display the number. Well, you can do the same thing as I showed you for the BR tag or line break in HTML. I'm going to go right here. I'm going to go double quote. Let's say this is my first number. I'm going to set it double dots there, and I'm going to click a dot. So as you can tell, before I set the dot after the variable and then I set my string with my quotes, you can actually set that in front. And you see I set my first number, and begin quote, end quote, dot, first number. Now, you can also add information after it. So just because I set my variable at the beginning and the end doesn't mean it has to be at the beginning or the end. It just means I need to be able to break it apart. That is what the period or dot is doing for me. I'm breaking apart multiple things together while still allowing to be pushed out through the echo. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to go, my first number, 5, okay, is awesome. And then end quote. So now what I have is I have my string dot my variable dot my next string. So I'm setting strings around my variable here in this case. So after doing that, I'm going to click refresh. So now I have, this is my first number, 5 is awesome. Now as you notice right here, I don't have a space after that breaking. It's because just because I set a period, if I set a space there, it doesn't mean anything. Because it's only wanting to pull the variable. If I want to add a space, I have to add it to my string beforehand. So I add a space after the double dots and click refresh. Now I'm spaced apart. This is awesome. Now a nice fun trick about variables is if you're using a string and you want to attach a string on top of another string before you echo it out, you can. You can actually do that with numbers too. And I'm going to show it with the number in this case, but you can do the same thing with the string. So I'm going to go final underline outcome. I'm going to define a new variable. It's going to be called final outcome. It's equals. I'm going to attach my first step and my first number together. So I'm going to go first step. Now, I can do it two different ways. I can go dot first number, which this will just attach them together. It won't add any spacing or anything special. So if I click refresh right here, nothing happens. I forgot an echo. My bad. So let's echo that here. Echo final outcome. There you go. Yeah, first step, let's get going 5. That's because I attached my first one, which is first step, let's get going, and I attached first number 5. Now, another thing I can do here, even though I attach these two variables, the dot is just breaking apart variables. Instead of sending a semicolon, which ends what you're trying to define, you set a dot, which allows you to define multiple things within one object. And object keyword, don't use object. There's actually object values or variables or object classes that you can use too. So object is a little bit not the correct term in this terminology, but just to show you that you can add a string in between, I'm going to go double dots, add a dot, and now I just want to space it and say hi 5. So I have my first step, which is first step, let's get going, hi, and then 5. So we're going to go right here, click refresh. Now I have, first step, let's get going, hi 5. So all I did is just mainly played around with my variables and attached them together. Now there's one more echo that you can do, especially if short tags is enabled. It's a really nice thing, especially if you have a full HTML page and you need to define a variable within just a part of it. Instead of having all the HTML, like how I have it currently, right here, inside my PHP, you define it beforehand, like, hi, title tag h1. In this case, I would like to make my final outcome come out right below that, right where it says title tag h2, end of content. So I'm going to go down here. This is another one. You're going to go left caret, question mark, equal. Equal means echoing. It's going to print it, echo, display whatever information is going to be inside this tag. So I'm going to end that tag here real quick, and then I'm just going to call that variable. Now, another thing that you need to know is when you define it before hiring your page, it will be found lower in your page unless you redefine that variable or unset it. In this case, I did not unset it, and I did not redefine my variable. I just defined it and said use it. Now I want this tag to come after, I want this information to come after my title tag h2. So I added a left caret, question mark, equal. So I'm going to echo out whatever's in this PHP tag, which is my final outcome tag, and then nothing else happens afterwards. So refresh, bam, it's right there. So as you can tell, that is how you actually define a variable and how you use the basic PHP. In the next tutorial, I'll be showing you a little bit more on that. It's going to be including arrays. And farther down, we're going to go into functions, how to define a function, how to run our little basic command, classes, and more in depth. So hopefully this was helpful for everybody, and I hope you enjoyed it. and I hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a comment or like below. If you want to keep up with all activities on the channel, click subscribe. And if you would like to watch another video, there's some videos listed down below here. And thanks for watching.